Namaste. What you all see today was not how it was 4 years ago. I wasn't always that person that you all know, that poised, confident, vivacious Myra. Just kidding. The last few years have been filled with change for me, losing my dad and moving cross countries from America to India. It has been a long journey for me from then to now. These incidents made me face big changes, and I realized that each time I had to deal with change, I went through a 3-step process. First, I questioned and resisted the change. Then, I reflected on what was around. And finally, I used whatever advice was good to move forward. But sometimes, this was harder than others. The first big change was losing my dad. I was an only child of 6 years, living with my mother in the United States of America when my father passed away. When this incident happened, a bunch of questions popped into my head, like why me, or what did I do that this happened? But I started to think about my life. I still had my friends, school, teachers, etc. to help me out. I knew that all of this would get better. I knew that this wasn't the end of the world. However, I also knew that things could never and would never be the same. After a year of losing my dad, my mother sat me down and told me that we both would be moving to India to be closer to family. On that day, my mind went ballistic. This was my world, America was my home, and it had memories of my father. Barring 2 to 3 weeks of vacations every other year in India, my life was practically built up in America. How could I just leave all of that behind? I pleaded my mother to change her mind, but that didn't help. So we finally relocated. So many unanswered questions were floated in my head. Like, what was life going to be like? Or what was I going to do? I felt frightened and nervous. I arrived in India 2 years ago. Change was everywhere. I would throw open the car because I wasn't used to the bumpy roads. From a less populated country to almost the most populated country, everything felt chaotic and rushed. McDonald's was spicy. Mac and cheese was replaced by dal chawal. American football was replaced by cricket. And I had a different accent. In America, I would have to tell everyone that I'm Myra Anand and not Myra Anand. Here, the tables had turned. I was pronouncing everyone's names in an American accent. Rahul instead of Rahul, Divya instead of Divya. At the end of 3rd grade, I still had no friends, no Indian accent, nothing. The first year was a blur. I lost touch with who I was, trying to fit in. My mom often says you should bloom wherever you're planted. It was then that I pondered on her saying and realized in America, after my father passed away, I bloomed because I had a positive attitude. Whereas now, in India, even though I had an easier situation to cope with, I failed because I had a bad attitude. This made me think more carefully about my situation. In 4th grade, I decided that I could not change my situation, but I could change my attitude. I started looking at the brighter things about this move to India. I started being grateful for the things I had versus what I was missing. I was grateful for having my extended family around, getting great food from my grandmother whenever I wanted. I mean, it was no mac and cheese, but it was still good. Sitting outside with my cousin's sister in the apartment complex, gossiping about school. So much different from the cold New York nights alone in the house. My mother got better with more love and support, which made me happier. Things were getting better step by step. My mother enrolled me for music lessons and swim lessons, things I love to pursue in America. I started interacting more at school. I stopped trying too hard to fit in, and I stopped trying to make India more like America. Slowly, things changed for me. I started to learn and understand the language, which made me feel more comfortable. I gained all of this due to my changed mindset to not resist this move to India. Now in 5th grade, I feel a sense of belonging in India. I slowly realized it's in our power to cope and survive. We just have to embrace the situation. Some things cannot be the same after a big change, and we have to accept that. We have to let go of some of the good things from the past in order to make room for the new good things around you. This is relevant for all of us, not just the people who've survived a big change or tragedy. We're all moving up to middle school, and we're all going to face changes, big and small. We just need to be prepared to face them. So look at the world with brighter eyes. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is still very powerful. I'm thankful for my struggle because without it, I wouldn't have stumbled across my strength. I would like to end with a quote by John Maxwell. The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, and the leader adjusts the sails. Thank you.